Scarlett, she has been living in Korea for quite a while. I think now she's actually back in Canada, but back in the day, she did live in Korea, back in Heart of Swarm and Legacy of the Void. Practiced a lot, played in a lot of tournaments, both individual and team leagues, and so they are very familiar with each other. But we'll see if that's gonna be a factor here in this new meta as we spawn into Cosmic Sapphire. We're of course in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in the bottom right-hand corner. We have our red Zerg player coming down from the land of Canada. Representing Shopify Rebellion, we have Scarlett.
And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Cosmic Sapphire, we have the South Korean Zerg player representing Kwangdong Freaks. It is soO.
2018 GSL Season 1 quarterfinals was actually what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I'm sure they probably played against each other after that.
Yeah, I just checked, and it's really exciting because confirmation. We have confirmation. soO and Scarlett, this is the first time that they're playing against each other in years, ever since 2020. So before soO went to the military. So yeah, this is their first time meeting. Apparently they've kind of missed each other in like the ESL Open Cups or the GSL qualifiers.
Yeah, funnily enough. Well, I guess it does make sense. soO was in the military, and Scarlett was back in Canada for the longest time in those 2 years since they last faced each other.
Yeah. So it's cool to see them meet up once again in over 2 years. Oh boy, and we'll see how things will shape up here. So far, pretty standard openers. soO had a bit of a rough go of things when going up against Raynor, but Scarlett is a very different kind of Zerg player.
Yeah, she's a little bit trickier in that sense. It's pretty hard to anticipate what either Raynor or Scarlett go for, but with Raynor, it's just because he moves so quickly, you can't really keep track of him. With Scarlett, on the other hand, it's because she's always planning something.
Exactly. It's one of those things where ever since Scarlett joined, the Project Unity team house back in the day, whenever she kind of joined forces with No Regret with Jake, she suddenly became a much more cheesy player. To great effect. I'll always remember when she cheesed out Rogue from GSL in a very quick series. This was also back like in 2018 or something.
Yeah. Very specifically, that season, man, that first season of GSL in 2018 was insane. It was like she cheesed. It wasn't just Rogue. I think that was in the second round of groups. In the first round of groups, she cheesed out both Zest and Innovation.
She was crazy, Bob. She was crazy, and
then she did that again to SOS in IEM.
Yeah, and it's like ever since then, like she's become a much more terrifying player, just because she isn't just the macro machine that she always was, but also she's more willing to be hyper aggressive as well and be cheesy and mix things up. So she's become more of an unpredictable player. So we'll see how things shape up here as soO, very similar to game 1 against Raynor, is making a wave of links behind this, is going to be that much more aggressive.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to pull off on Cosmic Sapphire just because of the sheer length of this map, but the bases are a bit more isolated. You do have to invest quite a bit more in defending your third bases right now, as Scarlett just finishes up her third.
Yeah, Scarlett's own third is done. Behind this, of course, Scarlett is working with a couple of less lings, but she's making more to defend and make sure that she can deflect this attack. You see her third base is taking quite a number of hits here, but here we go. The queens are getting in position and the lings are coming out.
So nice little connection here for soO, but more and more lings are starting to pop out for Scarlett. This is why the defensive advantage of Cosmic Sapphire is just that much stronger.
Exactly. Now Scarlett can go for her own counterattack. Oh my god. The Bailings almost find their connections. We don't end up trading 3 lings for 1 Bailing. soO only has a single Bailing remaining, and once that goes down, he only has lings and 1 queen.
Yeah, this 1 Bailing is not going to see the light of day. soO, your drone drilling has to be super on point right now to survive, and it doesn't look like it is. Scarlett is just starting to pump out more and more lings. Now she's starting to transition to roaches.
Yeah, she's going for a +1 carapace roach push behind this. Her Ling counterattack has already done so much damage. 7 drones just went down, a queen as well, and all of those banelings. And now Scarlett, she can just back off and get ready for her follow-up push. Again, we always bring this up whenever we see it, but this +1 carapace timing has been very popular, especially among Scarlett.
Yeah. We bring it up every time we see it because it happens all the time. At least with Scarlett.
I think every single ZvZ that we've casted from Scarlett in the past couple of months has involved this +1 carapace roach push, and it's when you cut drones, you have lings, you have roaches, and this can be very terrifying. How do you defend against this? Typically with spine crawlers, and it looks like soO just hasn't had enough time to react here. He is just being dwarfed right now by the army supply.
It's like the old school response to roaches, where you just try to get as many lings to surround the roaches while you get your own, roaches as well. But we can see that's not really effective anymore. Scarlett's just overpowering soO, even cutting off the retreat of this queen and these roaches. I don't think soO's gonna survive much longer in this game.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is being picked off. soO's third base is completely just falling apart right now. We can see he's barely able to hold on to his natural, but just barely. We can see he only has a handful of roaches remaining. Scarlett, she takes down the third, and she wants more than just the third.
She wants to end it, mate, and she absolutely can. Slipping in through this wall, the boys are now being pulled, but I don't think that's going to be enough. There are barely any army units out right now for soO.
Yeah, there's only 2 roaches and a single ravager. The boys are pulled and they all go down one after the other, and just like that, in a very quick game number 1, Scarlett takes it.
And soO just really looked like he was caught with his pants down for a sec.
Just more than a second, mate.
Oh.
he was never wearing pants to begin with. GG. Unfortunately, even though he had a couple of banelings to defend, the connections left much to be desired, right? We saw that he had 2 banelings and they went off a little bit prematurely. They went off to only a handful of lings, and as soon as those banelings went down, Scarlett was able to snowball from there. And that's one of those things where, like, if you're droning up and if you're trying to be minimalistic, if you're trying to be hyper efficient with how you're spending your gas and spending your minerals, you need to be very careful, and you need to babysit those banelings. And on top of that, also scout to see if your opponent is actually droning.
Yeah, it's definitely very rare to say this, but it did seem like soO was being a little bit trigger happy with his banelings. It looked like he was just sending them in and kind of hoping whatever connections that they get are going to be good enough, or at least he hoped that they were going to be good enough, when a lot of times you see players be a little bit more conservative. You know, they hang their banelings back until they know for certain that they can actually get a decent connection with them. It wasn't really the case this time. And I will say, minimalist Zerg is now an aesthetic that I aspire. I aspire to achieve.
Yeah.
What would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, soO's trying to be minimalist like that, he's trying to achieve that. But I did actually see very similar characteristics against Raynor as well, in Raynor versus soO, where his bane control was maybe not where it quite needed to be, and because of that, he couldn't quite get away with being as greedy as he otherwise would like to. But we'll see how things kind of progress here in game number 2.
Indeed, we shall, as we continue our series on Waterfall. I'm here for this. We're in the top right-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in that top right-hand corner. We have our red Zerg player coming out from the land of Canada. Representing Shopify Rebellion, we have the Queen of Blades herself. It is Scarlett, with her actual color.
And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Waterfall, we have the South Korean Zerg player representing Kwangdong Freaks. It is soO.
Yeah, I was definitely a little surprised when you mentioned soO's baneling control against Raynor, but now thinking back, I think you're absolutely right. There were fewer opportunities for soO to really show that off, but when he did have, a chance to utilize those banelings, he also did kind of just suicide them in. Other than the drop lower play, that was really
Yeah.
impressive, but every other time it was,
Yeah, the drop load play, that
left
was
a
like
lot to be desired.
that was like the highlight of his game one against Raynor, because it was him fighting back amidst all the chaos. It was really cool to see, and I hope that we can see more of that. I just don't know if we will, in especially in Waterfall, just because of how small it is, how chaotic things can be. When it comes to the openers, soO did go for a hatch gas pool. Scarlett actually went for a pool first opener, so she was the one being a little bit safer. As a result, she is going to be slightly behind in that drone count, as we can see.
Yeah, we'll see if she's able to utilize. We'll see if she's able to utilize that, though. You know, it's not just the Lings that you want to look out for in the early game. I believe Scarlett also took a bit of an earlier gas, so Ling speed is okay, not on the way just yet, but eventually, you know, she should be able to get that. Maybe get a Baneling Nest a bit earlier on as well, or Roach Horn. I usually think of Waterfall as more of a Roach match. Map.
Definitely. We'll see how Scarlett utilizes this. We can see so far she only made 2 Lings, not 6, because she recognized, of course, that there wasn't an early pull from soO, so she's just, you know, being as minimalistic as possible with this, just making 2 Lings, gonna get a full scout off, confirming, okay, we have Ling speed on the way, we don't have additional gases. Scarlett just trying to make the most out of this and trying to transition back into droning.
I'll never get over the idea of minimalist Zerg. Like, we need the Marie Kondo of Zerg to come out.
Oh my god, it's a thing. It's a thing that was very popular in EU for a long time as well. You know, they were the kind of players that wanted to get into Roach v Roach in the mid game as quickly as possible and skip out on the crazy Ling Bane stuff. You know.
I remember the good old days of like 2018, 2019.
I was gonna say the good old days of like 6 months ago. But
no, it's always been a thing, yeah. Especially like you said, around the EU players.
Yeah. In a lot of the matchups, to be fair, it's you know the meta. But we'll see how things change here. For the time being, we see our third base being taken by soO. Scarlett is intentionally staying on 2 bases, though. We can see she's clearing out some of these overlords. She did go for an Evo chamber, and I wonder if she plans to make use of it, or if she just plans to make nothing but Lings.
Well, we just saw 10 pop out, and another 10 are on the way. +1 Carapace is coming down because of this Scarlett that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think she wants to go for another Roach Push behind this. She didn't pull completely out of gas, bear that in mind. She is mining gas behind this for, I imagine, a Roach Horn. Here we go, the Lings have already made it across the map, and they're already getting us around on this third base.
And I don't see this third base really surviving the Queens. Don't have a lot of energy for Transfuse. Scarlett's being chased away by these Banelings. And soO, this time, isn't wasting them. Unfortunately, Scarlett was doing a very good job of sniping them, splitting up her own Lings. Yet this seems to have bought soO enough time to chase us back and to keep this third base alive.
Yeah,
very nicely done.
He barely keeps it alive, bear that in mind. So at least soO is able to walk away with that faster third. He's able to have a decent drone count here. He's trying to re-drone. He's actually working in towards his own roaches and +1 range. But again, I don't really expect Scarlett to drone up too much herself. I expect her to be going for a bit of a roach push. Before that happens, though, soO gets a bit of a surround on these queens.
Yeah, taking all of them out. That's going to hinder not just the creep spread, but also the injects. I mean, there's actually no active creep tumor right now. And soO just continuing to pump out Lings to counterattack. He knows he has an opportunity.
Oh, he really does here, especially because Scarlett did skip her Baneling Nest. She's just going Ling Roach, so dealing with all these Lings early on can be a little bit difficult to pull off here. Finally, she's going to be able to stem the tide. soO isn't reinforcing. He's actually rallying his army back at home instead, so he's giving Scarlett an opportunity to create her own army.
Yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense here for soO. His third base is already this low. He doesn't want to waste any of his queens to any of his queen energy to transfuse it right now because he, just wants to get more and more supply. So he's playing it out safe, but he may have been leaving an opportunity on the table. Thankfully for soO, he is getting his roach count up.
He is, and he's gonna have +1 range soon, but Scarlett already has +1 carapace, and she is rushing across the map with her roaches, by the way. Just like the previous game, she wants to hit with that +1 armor or +1 carapace timing. Her reinforcements are being caught out a little bit, though. soO is getting some decent connections here, especially with that Baneling across the map. Meanwhile, we do see Scarlett hitting that third and is gonna be able to take down that hatchery.
Yeah, just like so, and that's all Scarlett really needs right now to secure a bit of a lead. On the other side of the map, soO, he had a choice to make of whether to commit to the third or try to break into the natural, and yeah, the choice he made unfortunately meant that he wasn't able to get much damage done either way.
Yeah, and this is scary because now we're on a low economy situation, but soO only has 2 hatcheries to actually produce from, so he's gonna have less larva overall to work with. Scarlett, she's been able to inject, she's been able to reproduce her army, she has her upgrade, she's going in once again trying to get us around on these roaches.
Yeah, the banelings are everything right now for soO, but they actually get caught out quite a bit. One of them still survives. There aren't any lings left here for Scarlett, though, and the upgrades have evened out. Scarlett may have +1 carapace, but soO has +1 range.
Yeah, but you know what? Scarlett has the defender's advantage, and she's going to be able to reinforce that much faster here. soO is forced to back on up. He still doesn't have his 3rd hatchery up and running it. He still doesn't have that larva to work with, and Scarlett, instead of droning, she's still making more ling roach. soO is making maybe a crucial mistake here in investing in more drones.
Yeah, I think he's just misread the situation. I mean, I can't say I blame him too much. I know he wants to catch back up economically, but yeah, I think he's just misread the situation. He has no idea that Scarlett is continuing to be aggressive. He thinks that Scarlett's going to be droning up, when in reality, that 3rd base is never going to be saturated.
Exactly, you know, I mean, soO, you know, he's going to be feeling pretty good that he can finally, you know, actually saturate that 3rd a little bit. But I'm sure he's going to be regretting that very soon here as Scarlett is pulling the trigger. She's coming across the map with another wave of Ling Roach.
Once again, soO is going to need a miracle Baneling connection to really turn this game around, but I'm not sure it's going to get up in time. This one Baneling is all he's got. This one Baneling could have really wiped out the Zergling buffer and given soO an opportunity, but it did get sniped before it finished morphing. A lot of lings coming out for soO right now, but they do get sniped by the banelings and by the roaches as well. soO, he slipped up just one too many times in this game when he really had a good chance of taking it. GG, Scarlett takes this series 2-0. And I gotta be honest, Light, I think that game was even more painful than game number 1 against Raynor here, because there was really a lot of good opportunities for soO to turn this around and tie up the series, but in the end, again, he just wasn't aware of Scarlett's intentions. He wasn't really aware that Scarlett only got that 3rd base for the larva. He really thought that they were going to get a longer macro game out of this, when that really wasn't the case.
And that's the scary thing about Waterfall specifically, because it's the smallest map, because of the short rush distance, you have very little time to react once your Overlord sees something. Unfortunately, obviously, he wasn't checking that 3rd base for any drones, and that's something he could have done, but he was instead relying a lot more on his Overlords covering the attack paths on Waterfall. And even though he did see the army coming, again, like, you only have a couple of seconds to react, and by that point it's too late. You've already spent your larva on a drones, and you can't kind of redirect your resources or anything like that. You're already committed once the drones are on the way. So yeah, unfortunately he wasn't quite ready. And that's the other scary thing about these kind of +1 carapace attacks, is that they are Ling Roach, and specifically, even though soO had +1 range, his banelings still wouldn't one-shot the lings because of the armor upgrade. You know, because of that, those banelings defensively, or banelings in general, just aren't as effective as they otherwise would be in different scenarios or different kind of compositions. So yeah, that's why this kind of push is quite scary, and that's also why I'm sure Scarlett is quite fond of it.
Terrifying, yep. I mean, it is just a very safe way of getting to your attack, right? Like you said, +1 carapace, it just keeps your units alive a little bit longer. It may not really do much in a Roach v Roach, but it's all about those banelings at the end of the day.
Yeah, specifically, it's about it kind of is about the Roach versus Roach, in the sense that your lings just soak up roach hits from your opponent, the roach auto attacks. And because of that, your own roaches excel that much more. And typically, how do you deal with all those things? With banelings, but because you have +1 carapace, like suddenly your banelings, they aren't as useful. They don't one-shot anymore, you know? And we even saw there, Scarlett was doing a great job just target firing the banelings of soO with her own roaches to make sure that there weren't even connections.
Yeah. All of a sudden, those lings just survive a little bit longer, and that's enough time to just get a connection onto your roaches, isolate them a little bit, surround them.
Yeah, and just like that, soO has had a bit of a rough go of things, falling to both Raynor and Scarlett here. GG, of course, Scarlett playing very well in this series, and yeah, she's able to get some nice points on the board.
Yeah, nice little bit of a lead here. I mean, getting the victories early on is pretty important, just to give you a little bit of momentum. If you slip up later down the line, it's not as impactful. It gives you a little bit of a buffer. And soO, I mean, he's really got to turn things around a little bit with his next opponent. We are sticking with him.
Definitely. And we will be covering that soon, TM, as we ourselves are going to have a bit of a buffer. We are going to be going on a short break. We are at the halfway point already. These ZvZs have been pretty quick, to be honest.
Yep.
Oh my god. Yeah, so we are going to be going on a bit of a break. When we return, we are going to have soO versus a laser.
There we go. Our last ZvZ of the evening, we promise.
Promise you. Fingers crossed.
Wait, what? No, we do promise.
I mean, technically, I could try and find another ZvZ if we really want.
Oh, that's why you cross your fingers.
Oh god. So everyone, enjoy yourselves. Get some water. Get some snacks. Go to the bathroom. When you return, make that ZvZ action. It's not stopping.
Never ends.
See you soon.